right, y'all. What's up? Thanks so much for joining the channel. This is Follow the Builds, and this is our first live builds. I'm super excited. We've got Brian Snodgrass on the show with us. And Brian, I guess tell us about yourself, and I guess show us a little about your fleet back there.
Yeah, thanks. So I've been a lifelong car enthusiast, became a Ford enthusiast. My brother had a 56 F100 in high school and never looked back. I do have a family history of owning Studebaker dealerships. My grandfather did. So I've got 53 Studebaker 2-ton wrecker, and I also have a 55 Studebaker
Nice.
Conestoga wagon. And then I've got two Mustangs. I've got a 67 that's fresh out of the field. Still needs some metal work. And then right behind me is my 68. It's got a 289 with the mild cam, long tube headers, and straight dual exhaust. I just completed the Mustang Steve Cobra front disc brake conversion on it, and actually haven't had a chance to take it out yet since then. I'm also the owner of Mustang Steve.
That's an important point. That's awesome, and super excited to not only know you but to use your products. This machine behind me has actually quite a bit of those products, so that's exciting. And now I want to introduce you guys to a new Mustang enthusiast, I would say, or maybe a new builder. And that is where I was not too long ago. And I was just bending the ears of all of those mechanics that I worked around, that during high school, I would sweep the floors of a mechanic shop. And first off, welcome to the show. And we would love to hear a little bit about yourself, a little bit about what your plans are, and about your build, most importantly.
Okay. So yeah, like you said, I'm pretty much just starting out. You were talking about sweeping at a auto shop. That's exactly what I'm doing right now. I'm over there just, interning is what they call it. Just pushing around a broom, listening to the guys, just trying to learn a little bit about this kind of thing.
Yeah.
I started out with a 91 Jeep Wrangler as my first car, just an old four banger with a
Awesome
five
car.
speed. Love that car. But now, I'm looking for something a little bit more retro, a little cooler. So I'm trying to get into Mustangs, um, especially the fastback. Unfortunately, they're a little bit out of my price range, being in college. So I saw your guys' video about the coupe to fastback conversion and how I could get one for, not cheap, but a little bit better than what I was looking at with a regular fastback. I've been inspired by the Bullet car, of course. I think everybody is who drives a fastback Mustang like that.
Yeah,
I was
sure.
trying to do either a 289 or a 390, just depending on whatever I can find, really, with a top loader if I can find one.
Yep.
Or I'm going to talk to you a little bit about this later, but automatic to manual conversion, something like that.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. The Bullet Mustang inspired me as well. I could say like 2 years ago, I started a build on a 68 Mustang. It was a real fastback. I found a great deal on it,
Oh,
and
wow.
I decided to go the Bullet theme, and that's the one I've got now. That I've done a lot of fun mods to. But yeah, no, excited to talk about this new build. So, are you in the process of looking for one? Are you
Yeah.
looking for the? Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, I'm trying to find one, kind of in my area. I think you mentioned a price point of like under about $5,000 is what I should be looking
Yeah,
for. Just a good roller kind
right.
of. Um, it's getting hard. Everyone that I found out there that's even a roller for a coupe, people are wanting upwards of $5,000 or $6,000. So I'm just kind of on the
That's
hunt.
We did a video about buying a car without a title and going through the
Yep.
bonded title process. So this 68 behind me was literally like 3 grand with the motor in it and everything because it didn't have a title.
Wow.
The guy had it. He bought it years ago, never got the title transferred. And anyway, so
Yep.
it was an amazing deal. And the body's actually fairly straight on it. It didn't have the front sheet metal, but the rest of it was fairly straight. So there's some things like that where you can find someone that for whatever reason they're offering it for less, but if it's a solid
Yeah.
car, and then you just have to do a little bit extra work on getting the title.
Yeah, for sure. And we're seeing that price range too. Brian, wouldn't you say um, that 5 grand price range, you can actually get a pretty decent coupe, I would say, in the 5 grand range, but not, it's not painted, it's not running, but it's
Yeah.
guts and the metal being replaced. You could get a decent one in that range. Um, but I think, if you could get one for 2 grand and you weren't afraid of a little bit of sheet metal fab, um, that's where my target would go first for a first car, is in the 2 grand range for the coupe. Um, Fastback, if you can find one, that's amazing. But
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, and honestly, if you're gonna be, you're gonna be doing pretty significant transformation. I personally feel better when the car is not too pristine because if you have a
yeah,
perfect coupe and you tear it up,
yeah,
I would feel bad about that. But if it does have if it's got some good sheet metal on it, you could sell the trunk. There's some different things like that that you can do also to kind of recoup your cost.
right.
If you got an idea on motor and all that stuff, if it has a different motor or something different in it that you're not going to use, then flip that, and then that'll reduce your purchase price.
Yeah,
If it's not going to add towards your final build. So,
yes,
Brian, I would say Facebook Marketplace probably is still the best place to look. You can obviously correct me if I'm wrong here, but I think the key is being quick. So there are deals to be had, but they go really fast. And there's the stuff that's not deal sits out there for months, but the deals come and go fast, or they have bad pictures. I found that Craigslist is not really used by a lot of people anymore. So if you go
yeah,
there, the ads just aren't getting visited as much. So it can be a good opportunity if someone's posted it there. Nobody's looking at it. Maybe they feel like it's not going to sell, and you may have a good opportunity. Um,
yeah,
and then also classified ads on forums is another place, or even reaching out on some forum and say, hey, does anybody know of a car? And there's some Facebook groups even for Mustangs for
that's
sale. So there's a lot of Facebook groups would be the other one besides Facebook Marketplace.
yeah. If you kind of know what you're looking for, like even now, I go on there, and I shouldn't go on there because I don't need any more right now. I've got enough projects, but I
right.
go on there and I find something I know, because I know exactly what I'm looking for. And so just kind of shaping out, like, that's a little over my price range. That's a little but this little, this guy right here is what I'm looking for. And so I would say anything that's been done metalwork wise, and but as a roller, 2 grand, I think is a great starting point, because you can go into it. This
Right.
one behind me was a 6-cylinder T code. So on the fifth digit of a Mustang title, you'll see A code, C code, and T code. T code is, I think it's different between years, right, Brian? Because it actually
Yeah, yeah,
changes for a 67, 68, which is what Max is looking targeting, I think. Right, Max? Is that the
Yeah,
the, the year that you?
yeah. Those are my
Yeah.
target years.
Yeah, so that fifth digit is going to tell you like what it was, the engine code, or what it was originally. Um, if you get the S code, which has that 390 with the 4 speed, that's the desirable one. So if you
Yeah,
find that, and you're welcome to let us know without us stealing your ride. You can let us know, and we'll tell you if it's a good deal or not. But yeah, it's hard to find those. So if you do find them,
yeah,
they're worth paying more money for. The T code, though, I had no problem cutting it up. It's just
yeah.
not really as much of a desirable car. This one had good bones, so I didn't feel bad cutting it up. So let's get into a little bit more about the coupe to fastback conversion. You mentioned that maybe you and your dad would be doing some fab.
Yes, sir. Yeah, that was what we are going to be thinking
Awesome.
about doing.
Awesome. Okay, so I can tell you it's a fun project because you cut off a lot of metal, and you're scared to
Yeah,
death once all that metal's gone. You're like, how is this all going to go back together? But it really goes back together pretty well. Um, so one of the things, you know, on that is the sheet metal, and the sheet metal, it costs, right? So there's
right.
different ways you can do it. I did choose to use all of the original kind of inner structure
Okay.
of the coupe de fastback. There's another way of doing it where you just buy rear quarters
Okay.
and then you create and fab your own inner structure. I say you can reduce the cost of the materials by like 3 grand by doing that. Um, and that's a significant savings on probably about 6 grand of metal.
Okay.
So you can jump into a coupe de fastback then for like 3 grand. But that's a significant savings, but it's also a little more fab on your end.
Yeah, and I don't
So
think we're there yet on the skill level.
well, yeah, I definitely wasn't either, not too long ago. I can't lie. So it was just, I think, getting out there, and I can tell you one of the most important lessons I learned was an old mechanic, and he's gone now. But he told me you just got it, or something to the effect. And I can't even remember the exact words now, but it sticks with me. It's just getting out there and trying, going in the face of fear, even though you feel like you're just about to screw something up. Just go ahead and do it anyway, because the beauty of it all is this is a T code.
Right.
To Brian's point earlier, the cheaper you get on the car, the less you feel like you're messing something up, that's
Right.
going to be super valuable. Like an S code, I'm intimidated by messing with an S code too, just because that's an
People
original
want
car. Like if I don't,
yeah.
yeah, if I don't put the spot weld right, the purists are going to know about it. They're going to feel a
Right.
disturbance in the force and come through the live stream
Attack
and
you.
get us.
The nice thing though is
Yeah.
you can literally get any part for a Mustang reproduced. So like if you mess up something on it,
Yeah.
you can get a reproduction sheet metal. So it's not like, of course, the original's gone, but it's not like it's a replaceable as far as your car goes. You can get a replacement part. So
Yes.
you can
That
actually
is
buy
that
a
is
whole
the
shell, a whole fastback shell,
Yeah, I've seen that.
but that's quite a bit more.
Yeah, a lot more.
and
Yeah,
and the thing is on those it doesn't include a lot. You know what I mean?
Right.
yeah,
Like the shell is just a shell. It doesn't include the little brackets that held your dash in there, or you know what I mean? There's a lot of things
Exactly.
that you have to
Yeah.
still go get. Finding the cheaper you find on the base car, uh, that's going to set the tone for everything. And then you've got your coupe to fastback parts, your metal. I go through Kentucky Mustang to get some of my metal.
Okay.
Um, I think they're, for one, they're great customer service, and they carry all the Dynacorn parts. Dynacorn is something that I mix parts. I think the inner structure on this one on that side is whatever other make that is. I can't even
Okay.
remember what the other make is. But then the rest of it is somewhat Dynacorn. So you can
Okay.
kind of piecemeal and without any issues. But the quarter panels, I would trust more of the Dynacorn quarters
Okay.
if I
Okay.
was going that route. But but yeah, the coupe to fastback. When you get in the middle of that as well, I want to get you back on the stream, and
Yeah,
I want to see where you're at, man. That'd be amazing.
I'm excited.
Um, what are your plans? Are you planning a daily driver? Are you planning a weekend driver? Or just a
You
show
know,
car?
there's a guy on Instagram called Save Classic Cars. I don't know if you guys have seen him. He's got that really
Yes.
cool bullet esque Mustang that he has, and he's all about daily driving classics. And having that '91 Jeep Wrangler, it's really put me in love with those old classic cars.
Yeah.
So it would be maybe not a daily driver, but the majority of the week, we'll say.
There you go. If you had another car, you could share. It
Yeah,
could share
right,
the daily driving time.
right.
that's what
Exactly.
I was gonna ask. What your goal was? So you mentioned on motor, you said either 289 or a 390. Is that right?
Right. Yeah.
So is that because you want originality, or is there something in particular um, about those motors that appeals to you?
I like the original aspect of it, but the I think it was the 390 was in the Bullet car, right? It was stroked out a
Yeah.
little bit, right?
So a lot
That
of
that being
yeah,
the
a
one
lot of
time.
people what that. Well, again, it depends what your goals are. So
Right.
a lot of guys will use a roller 5.0 from like a Fox
Okay.
body,
Yeah. Yeah.
because with the as opposed to a flat tappet cam, so it just is potentially a little more durable, and you can get you can get a ton of power out of those. You could probably get pretty similar where you would with the 390, but
Okay.
as opposed to a 289 anyway.
Right.
That's a pretty common mod, and you can get like a block out of like an Explorer or something like that,
Okay.
and then build it. The same thing with the T5, out of a Fox body is a pretty common swap. But again, it kind of depends what you already said you wanted a top loader, so it sounds like you kind of want some of that originality
Yeah,
um,
I like
to it.
that old '60s style. Just I don't
Yeah,
know, something about it. Looking under the hood and seeing all that nice, chrome and blue and the decals and all that.
Yeah.
Something about it does.
No, I get that for sure. And to Brian's point on the roller motor 5.0,
Mm,
it's a perfect daily. It really
okay.
is because it's durable. That style fuel injection is legit and
Yeah.
it's solid. I've got one of those motors here that I'm excited to put one in because they're easy to mess with. You can kind
Uh,
of drive those to the ground.
on the roller, you still can make it carbureted if that's what you wanted to do, or
okay.
one of these uh, you know fuel injection retro mod kits.
Right. Do you guys know anything about the EFI kits for like the 289 and all those? Have you guys looked at those any?
The Phytech, there's a Phytech version, there's a Holly version. You're
Yeah.
talking about the throttle body, what looks like a
The throttle
carburetor,
body.
right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah. Just the bolt
yeah,
on.
yeah, no, I've heard some great things about them. The two for the 289 or for the smaller motor, you definitely just go with their very basic, version because it's these things don't
Right.
need to. They actually don't
Yeah.
like too much. So
Yeah,
um, they actually like to be pretty lean. I think the stock 4 barrel was like 450 CFM. So like I'm running a 600 on this is probably the
Right.
max that I would go
Okay.
on a
yeah.
289.
Mine had a 750 Holly when I got it. It was just way too much, so I went with the Summit 600.
Right.
It's much
Just
better.
drowned in it. Okay.
And I
Yeah,
think that was a thing back in the 80s, right? Like back in the 80s, because some of the cars that we're getting now are like people modded in the 80s and
Yeah.
I don't know, but that was the thing is like drown it in gas, you know what I mean, to get more power out of it. And yeah,
Well,
now we're air fuel mixture ratios
yeah.
and we're having some science now behind it. Not no
I was
offense to
gonna.
any of those that have worked in the 80s because power to y'all, I've learned a lot from you. Um,
I was gonna say though, that
get,
reminded me. That's another way to get a good deal on a project is find somebody else's project where they put in a lot of money, bought all the parts, and
heck
got
yeah.
so far and then gave up. Because you'll get
Yeah.
everything. I mean, especially a lot of times it'll be new in the box. The parts will. The only thing is if they've done work and they haven't done it right, you'll have to redo it. But as long as you check and make sure there's nothing that's you know
Right.
nothing done wrong, that can be a really good option where someone spent all the money and then they're taking a bath and then you get a good deal on it.
That's a great point. And I mean, really, Brian, I don't know. Have you been there? I've been there where I've gotten into a project and I've been like, man, I am about to throw my hands up on this thing. I'm done.
Yeah,
And so I
Yeah.
can relate with those folks that are trying to get rid of this project. I've been there. It's been, you've been frustrated with it. So that's the time to buy them, Max, from the
Oh yeah.
frustrated builder.
Yeah. I've actually been there
Um,
too with the Jeep. So
Okay, yeah, then. Let's go and jump into some of the pictures you shared, and we'll talk through
okay.
them and talk through how to get there. Oh, so all of these were listings, huh?
The nicer ones that I sent you were not, but the two rust buckets, they were the listings.
Oh, okay, yeah, yeah. Okay, this one right here.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a 2 grand one. Okay, yeah. All right, yeah. And so, what the beauty of also if you're already knowing that you're doing a Coupe fastback, eh, most of these things have bad quarter panels,
Right.
but you don't care.
Yeah. Just
You
you're gonna
don't
tear them
care.
out.
Like you're gonna tear them out. Yeah. So the worse they are, the more leverage you have to buy.
Right.
You can look at it that way. Where you can start pointing out, it's like, well, look at these quarters. I've got to replace these quarters. You know what I mean? Like, look at these
Exactly.
things. Like, I've got to do all along. You know, you're going to do it. So it's not necessarily you're lying, but it's
Exactly.
just, it's a point where you can use to leverage the price of the car.
Right.
So for this, I definitely wouldn't go for the 2 grand. It could go for, I would go down to
Right.
1,500. This would be my price
Yeah.
point for this car. I mean, just looking at it, I don't
Yeah.
even
There
know.
was a lot of work that had to be done with that
Um,
car.
is there? Okay. Yeah. And it does look like a 5 lug though. So I do note that the,
Yeah.
the 5 lug there. Um, so that's a plus. Um, so I guess I missed some other ones, but this is kind of like the bullet-esque theme, right?
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. You got those American racing
Yeah.
wheels with the all the badges taken
Yeah,
off
that's
the
awesome.
front and all
Yeah, I love that. That definitely speaks. Uh, American muscle there too. Um,
that.
yeah. So that's also if it's good to note that those are like the 15 or 16-inch wheels.
Right.
Um, so going too large on your wheels, you can do that or whatever. But 16 is where I personally would stay,
Okay.
um, or 17, better, right? Brian, what would you say?
Yeah, well, yeah, it's a lot of it truly is a matter of preference. I actually had 19s, believe it or not, from a new
Whoa.
Mustang on my 68, and it rode terrible. Um, and I didn't, and actually they were a little too large
Yeah.
diameter. I needed lower profile tires, but it was terrible as it was, and fitment was really difficult. So I think 17s are probably kind of the best all around if you want performance. If you're going for the look and you want the kind of classic look, then you could go for 15 or 16. And they
Okay.
do make brake kits for the smaller wheels. You can get 4-wheel disc brake kits for 15 or 16-inch wheels. But if you want a little more performance, like the Cobra brake swap will only work with 17-inch wheels. So again, it just kind of depends on um, how much you're
Right.
going for the look versus the performance, or even just the ride and handling characteristics.
Okay.
Yeah. And wheels do make a big difference on a car, right? You can just put some good pair of wheels on some cars and they just look way better. Um, no, this is great. And so, I remember you were in some of your emails, you were talking about like, are you taking off bigger bite than you can chew,
Yeah.
and things like that on your first fab build and things like that. I think you just need to be prepared for just this rear deck lid fitment.
Yeah. I've heard
That's a
horror stories.
challenge.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. It's even a challenge just on a regular fastback. The
Mhm.
way that you can kind of tell this one's kind of offset and off a little bit up
Right.
here. It's okay. It's not a big deal, but you can get that better,
Right.
and work at it. Right here, you see the gap there is gets kind of weird, and that just to show you that
Yeah.
that's an aftermarket deck lid there. You know what I mean? So there's challenges you're going to face. Just knowing that the rest of it could be done definitely in a day or two. But
Okay.
yeah, let's open up to what questions you have.
Well, we've pretty much gone over a lot of them. You touched on the newer engines and drivetrain. How much fab would I have to do to get that Fox body engine to fit in there and look right and perform correctly?
Yeah.
I haven't
So
actually
go
built
ahead.
one, but I believe the block is very similar to the 289.
Okay.
It's probably one of the most common engines. I mean, Brian, correct me, but I think it's one of the most common engine
Right.
swaps, at least of a lot of the guys that I talk to. Um, so if you had to modify anything, the stuff's already, I mean, you could probably buy mounts if you needed something different. And there's probably more support for if you ran into any issue or anything like that, because it's just been done so many times because it's such a good fit, and it's so similar to the 289 as far as the size and all that.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, I'll just second that. That the Windsor block, even the 351s, you could fit in there.
Well, I guess touching on kind of that, shock towers, suspension, all of that. if I want to get it up to like a more modern standard, what am I looking at changing out?
There's definitely different takes on this, and
Okay.
I'm on the fence on all of them. Seems like
Yeah, I've
so.
seen your video
Uh,
on the suspension for that one actually.
yeah, yeah. So I don't know yet on this one yet,
Okay.
right? I like to build the drive and actually go out there and say, hey, how does it feel? And then I can tell you.
Right.
I can tell you from personal experience the SN95 conversion that I have on my Highland Green uh, bullet esque Mustang.
Right.
It's a blast. It actually handles very well. It's a little rough compared to the original. So I'm still working that.
Okay.
Only thing I'll say else about that piece is that it's super customizable. Like
Right.
you can add a different spring rate very easily, very inexpensively. You can, you know, adjust the coil height for
Right.
whatever ride height you're looking for. So I like that setup. It does notch the shock towers,
Right.
so it'll provide you opportunities for coyote, anything you
Right.
want. So that's kind of my take on things. I do think that this setup with the roller perches
Mm.
is really actually gonna I think it's gonna blow my mind. I already know that it's gonna be a good setup, and I haven't even got it on the road yet.
I'm excited to see how that
So
works out then.
There's different approaches, to a project. So earlier in the video, I mentioned with my car, I basically got it running and limped it around the neighborhood and actually broke down a few times. But my whole approach was get it running in stock form. I mean, the engine already had been modded, but get it
Right.
running and see how I like it, and then modify from there. So I actually drove it with four wheel drum brakes, with
Okay.
manual drum brakes and manual steering. It still has manual steering. I drove it around that way for quite a while. It
Okay.
actually took some effort to get the drum brakes working like they should, and I actually was able to actually lock up the tires when I needed to stop quickly one time. It had enough power to. Um, but anyway, all that
Okay.
to say, and then I drove it. I drove it with the way the suspension was, and then I did a Shelby drop, 1 inch coil spring drop, and replaced all the suspension. And anyway, it was kind of cool to see the improvement in the handling. Um, anyway, so my approach is to kind of try it out, see how you like it. I know if your car is not running and driving, then that's difficult,
Okay.
but that is another approach where you kind of
Right.
modify it, see how you like it, and maybe you like it, maybe it doesn't need anything else, maybe you hate it and you rip it all out. The downside is you may end up
Okay.
doing something 2 or 3 times, but it's
Right.
can be more cost effective if you end up sticking with more of the stock style suspension.
Okay. You guys mentioned, getting a roller, that has a lot of rust on it because you're gonna take it out anyways. What are your opinions on paying a little bit more to get a, more stock car with an engine and a transmission already in it?
If that's kind of the traditional wisdom, actually, is to buy the best car you can afford to start
Okay.
with. Um, it all depends on your budget. I
Right.
mean, so that's the other thing, is how much time do you have? And so, like, all that metal repair, it's not super expensive. I mean, some of the floor pans are literally $50. Like for
Right.
the driver's side front floor pan, I think it's like $50
Yeah.
at Summit. So the parts aren't expensive, but it's time, right? And
Yeah.
then and if you want to learn it, how quickly you want to be driving it, and all of that. So that's a big part of it. But then also your budget. The motors you're talking about. If you're gonna build a 390, that's a different price point probably
Right.
than if you get a block out of an Explorer and kind of put something together. I haven't priced a 390, but that's just going off of what I would guess. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, traditional wisdom is buy the best car you can afford, and I'm sure Brian has something to add to that, or he's bought quite a
yeah,
few
no,
lately.
I think no, I don't know, but budget time, that is the key, right? Like, what are you willing to look at as far as budget and time? And like, I think what we could do real quick is we could potentially like put like a projected scenarios together, maybe
Sure.
two scenarios where one you buy a um, I'm not going to say rust bucket, but something that needs a
Right.
lot of metal work, right?
Okay.
And we're going to say that starts at 2K, right?
Sure.
That so you got 2K in it, and that you haven't bought any metal, you haven't bought any time put into it, and then what do you say? Like the next step there is gonna have to be you're gonna get the metal work. You're gonna do a coupe to fastback. Let's say let's just keep this one on the very cheap since you're not as concerned about this time factor
Right.
on this one. Let's just say on this scenario, you get in and we're going to do it the cheap route for coupe to fastback, which is cheaper than the route I took. But
Okay.
let's say you
Yeah.
can get into it for 3,500. Let's see, 3.5K for the metal.
Sure.
That's your floor pans because you're probably going to need
Right.
those. That's your quarter panels, and then we're going to go the cheap route on how that inner structure goes. So
Okay.
you're into the car there for 5,500, and then Brian, what would you say on suspension if we stayed stock? You think?
Yeah, if you
Um,
stayed stock, I'm trying to remember. It was well under $1,000 for all front suspension, and I did new leaf springs, polyurethane bushings. I mean shocks. It all depends on where you get it from. I mean, on any of the Mustang parts, you can get the cheapest one, or you can spend 3 times as much. I tend
Right.
to look for the best value, meaning that not necessarily the cheapest one, but one that's quality, but at the best price. And so I went with polyurethane bushings.
I think definitely, yeah. If you stayed the stock route, you're gonna save some money on your suspension, and you're
Okay.
gonna keep it. All that so it also offsets your time because it's if you stay stock, it's gonna be faster.
Right.
So this one doesn't really play to time as much. This suspension, it actually is less time to produce all of that.
And also the $1,000, if you're gonna do like an open tracker or something, then it'd be higher than that. It depends how much of the components you replace, I guess,
Right.
as well.
It's a good point. Yeah, if you use the roller perches, which I did, they're a little more pricier, but definitely in the long run, it's going to be a lot more worth it because you
Okay.
don't want to go in there twice.
Yeah, I brought my leaf springs off the Facebook Marketplace too. So yeah, well, yeah. So
Great.
that's what I was gonna say. So not to cut into this process, but also I use Google Sheets, and I kind of do this exact same thing and write out all the stuff that I'm looking for and what I think it's going to cost to put my budget. But then
Right.
you can be on the lookout on Facebook Marketplace for stuff you're going to need, and if you have the money, and then you see something and you snatch it up, and then you reduce your overall build cost.
Right.
Yeah.
But it's kind of knowing, it's kind of having that vision on what do I want this to be at the end, rather than which is what we're doing right now, rather than just kind of buy the next part, put it on, buy the next part, put it on. Instead, kind of have that master
Right.
plan.
So yeah, brakes. I'm going to just say, $700 you can get into some brakes. That's on the cheap side,
Okay.
right? We're staying on the cheap here, and in time, not as when I was worried about time.
Yeah.
Um,
Right.
but you definitely want to invest in brakes on these things. They're beasts as stock. Just going to go with the drivetrain. Brian, what would you say here?
So
Used,
if we're doing it, yeah, if we're doing like a budget build,
yeah,
Yeah.
find one. There's people that rebuild them for their project. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if you could get one for 1,500, like a low mileage, someone that's upgrading their
yeah.
motor or something
Okay.
like that, like just the motor itself.
Right.
Um, that's already low mileage or something like that. But I don't know what top loaders are on. I haven't priced those. 7,500, I guess, if you were just to throw a number out there. What do you think, Ryan?
Yeah, I was going in that realm, but so there's a local rebuilder around that I can bring them my engine, and he'll rebuild it. It used to be $1,100. I had a few of them
Wow.
rebuilt that way, and then I decided to do my own. But he'll rebuild the whole thing, and it's a basically a short block. No, that was long block. That was included. He went through the valves and everything. So but he was using all inexpensive, the cheapest you can get equipment to go back
Right.
into it, all stock. Like you couldn't do any performance parts. Like he wouldn't let you. Like you had to do the stock regular
Here's one
stuff.
my way. Yeah.
Yeah. So it just didn't bring a lot of flexibility to me. So I don't do that anymore. But you can do that. You can find something that's there and then go to get it. And he gives you like a 6 months warranty. I bet there's somewhere where you live that does that. Give you like a little 6 months warranty. Problem is, in 6 months you're not going to be on the road with it, and that's
Right.
just sometimes the bottom line. You know what I mean? With
Yeah.
this ride right here that we're talking, it's going to take more time. It's going to take you a year. If not, I think Brian and I have had these discussions where we think we can do things faster if you're more strategic about things.
Right.
If you're doing, if you're more, if you're not just on the parts trail, like Brian was just mentioning, like, yeah, just going, oh, I need this part, I need this part, I need this part. That'll just raise up your budget, and you'll blow your budget. But as me and Brian said, budgets kill projects. So that's something to think about. So I'm gonna go sit there right in the $5,000 range for this one, because I think you can go cheaper with your drivetrain and find. But I'm gonna say around $12,000. You're in this one, but you got a fastback.
Well,
as well.
Paint. Well, paint, tires,
I'm sorry?
Wheels.
Yeah, paint,
Yeah,
tires,
Paint
wheels.
and tires and wheels, interior. But
we're missing a few things, aren't we? Yeah.
Yeah.
So
We're probably looking about 20, I would think.
it's another one where you can go to Mako and you can get it $3,000 or maybe less depending on the condition.
Right.
Or you can obviously go as far as you want the other way, or you can paint it yourself. And if you get an off the shelf paint color, and depending on what type of paint, you can keep the cost down.
Right.
And really, all of that to say is, like, say you got the metalled work done, this part done for $5,500. You're like, wow, I really got it done, and I'm under where I really thought I would be, and I kind of like where I'm at. I'm ready to invest more. You know what I mean? Like, then you can take a strategic step in the drivetrain. Like, okay, I'm really going to invest in my drivetrain, not so much in my interior right now.
Right.
And then you can kind of put that up for next year. You know what I mean? Like, put your interior up for next year, but kind of take it in big chunks like that, where you get your body work all where it's supposed to be. Then you can consider, that part's done, and then get your suspension done, your brakes where it's movable, drivable. If it had power, to get that check done, and then your drivetrain would be, maybe the biggest investment there.
Guys, it was so good to meet Max and to talk about his future build plans. Sometimes that's all you need, is just to talk it over with somebody. If you like this kind of format, please let me know in the comments. If you didn't like it, please let me know that too. And don't worry, we'll follow up with Max and all of his build plans. Let's get to it.